Well, hello there, YouTube. It's Thursday, June 29th, 2023. And today I want to install the high voltage distributor. Not just any high voltage distributor, a new manufactured distributor sitting right underneath that box. I just want to thank you guys for subscribing. You know, we're getting close to starting this car. The plan is, of course, to start this car live on YouTube. So subscribe and click the bell so you'll be notified when I do go live. You know, it'll be a lot of fun. I'd like to see a big old party. Thanks for subscribing. Okay, I've been really excited to open up this box. You guys know what that is? That's the distributor. I am looking forward to this. Here it comes. That is the distributor. All right, I bought it direct from them. Let's look inside. Well, it looks like we're gonna get some information. We'll have to look at that later. I'm more concerned with whether or not we've got a true remanufactured distributor here. That's the thing I'm looking for right there, you guys, is this number. Compare that with the one I have. I can tell you it's got a new pin, and you can see it's a split pin, just like I said in a previous video. See, you can see right through it. So that's how they do it. And I will have to try to look in there with my magnifying glass and see. I can see that they've got grease and everything on there. That's good. It is Bosch. It's cleaned up nice. So I don't see any cracks or anything in the body. So all signs point to a good distributor. Well, I can tell you one thing. This looks like the wrong O-ring. This is the wrong O-ring, I can tell you that. See how that is? Watch, I'll show you the real O-ring. This is the real O-ring, and there's your part number for that. You see how skinny that is in comparison to this one? Can you see the difference? Much thicker. This will probably work. I'm gonna take that one off, we'll look at them next to each other. Quite a big difference, isn't it? Again, I'm going to look at this, and it looks like, they're not really using a thrust washer. You can hear it. I mean, it's supposed to be like that. They do have a spacer, but I don't see that they have any thrust or like that fiber one in the other one. So that's how they're doing it. They can't get those fiber things, and so, again, they're just throwing it together. The master mechanic said just put it in. As a matter of fact, he said, don't worry about it, put the distributor in. What I understand, this has been on a tester, a sun tester, and they do all the different RPMs and all that, make sure that the timing, is done correctly, because these things spread out. These are weighted, just like in the old days, just like the old Volkswagens and stuff. But what's nice is we have all new wear points inside there and everything. So you can see all that's all new. Right, all those wear points inside there. Could look at this here maybe. I don't know if they're achieving their thrust with this type of a washer, with that little crimp in there, I don't know. Well, either way, we have a new distributor. See, let's see how these part numbers compare with the original. There's your numbers. It looks like we match 0237 505 003. That's as far as Bosch's number. And then the 003 5834 158. 01 is the Mercedes number. So this is a genuine Mercedes made specifically for this car. Matter of fact, it was listed as a 1987. That is the new one, and we'll get ready to install that. I have to remove all of this and put it on to this one. So we've got to take this off, that on the new one, because all you get is the distributor, right? So your cap. Have you guys seen how expensive these caps are? Unbelievably expensive. So I got to take the cap off. There's a little cap in there. We'll go take a look at that real quick. Oh, just a screwdriver or a Phillips is all it's going to take the cap off. You can look at all my wear points inside the cap. Actually, it's quite good. These are pins really that go all the way through, and I can see that they have the original machine points on there. And so those are all good. So it looks like this as well as this cap part itself. I think these, you know, they come apart, if I remember right. Take that off. That is the one that came with the car right there, as far as I know. Set that aside. Then we have our rotor, which you can see is basically brand new. I haven't done anything with it. And you just pop it off. And then you have your dust plate, which I'm gonna clean up before I stick in the other one. Same thing, you know, this one here has its wear points. You can see that, right? This thing here, it's not as new, obviously, than the other one. You know, there's probably just nothing at all wrong with this distributor. It doesn't move back and forth, but you can see how much movement that is. I can compare that with the other one. This part here is easy. You just take this out like that, and then this thing will slide right out. I'm gonna clean this up as well before I put it on there. I'll clean up the bolt. The bolt is the correct one, I checked. Other than that, I think I'm just gonna clean these things up because this has been sitting in the vehicle for 14 years. This thing needs to be cleaned. The rubber right here is soft and pliable and everything because I never actually clamped it down. I had purchased this stuff and I just put it inside. So I think we're ready to go take this over to the vehicle. Before I take this to the engine, I just wanted to check that thrust, right? I did just temporarily because I pulled on this and I go, huh, okay. This thing has so much movement. Let's see if I can show you guys. This is the old one. See how much movement you can see on the base of that? Maybe easier if I do this. This is the old one, right? The one that's missing that thrust. This one, which is the new one, see that? So they've tuned that in how it's probably supposed to be, right? So they've got the proper thrust. That other one has a lot of play. See that? This is the new one. That's how much thrust play. Very, very minimal compared to the old one. You can already tell, right? Look at that. I told you there's one of those thrust washers on both sides in a previous video. I'm probably right. But you see how this pin is though? That's the original pin. It's supposed to be a pin like that. And then they hit it and strike it on the sides there. You see those little side points. But that's a lot of play there. So I'm happy that I exchanged this because that's just so much better. They use a roll pin. Now you guys know you can drill that out and use a pin. I've cleaned up those parts that go onto this. So let's go over to the engine. Again, I just wanted to give you the part number, everything. If you guys want to buy it direct, there's their website, cardone.com. The only tools you're gonna need is a 5mm hex, 13mm socket or open end probably would work as well, a ratchet, and possibly you may need a short extension. I think that's all we're gonna need as far as tools go. There are no torque specifications for this. One more tool that I forgot to mention. You'll need a 27mm socket for the front because after installing the distributor, I would turn the engine over twice, make a complete revolution, just to make sure that everything is seated properly and everything lines up. I still have that one bolt to put in for the AC bracket. All right, well, let's get started. I almost forgot this. This is the plate that goes on the front there, and there's 4 of these hex, and this is a 5mm hex for that. And I'm going to, for me anyways, I'm going to torque it down with this little guy to 9.9 Newton meters because there's really no specifications to this, but this is an M6 bolt. And if we slide on over, we can see it's 9.9. It's an 8.8. I think now I have everything to go. Let's go. This is what the manual has to say about removing and installing your distributor. There's really not much to it. All I included was the install information here. Really not much to it. It just says position the engine to TDC. But there's more to it than that. Just because I have that right there, you also need to look at your cams. So you want to make sure that you're actually at top dead center. So this is the left side. You know, I'm looking at cylinder number 1 actually, because just because that's on there, you also want to look at that. Both those lobes are off. So in other words, you're on that proper stroke. Lobes up, top dead center, and top dead center there. All right, so you're going to take off your dust cover, put that on there, and then put on your new cap. All right, make sure it's all cleaned. I put on a new O-ring. I lubricated it with petroleum jelly. And then on my crank part here, you can see I put some driven grease, assembly grease, because I also have it on the gear here. Petroleum jelly around that is to ease this. I also put a little bit of petroleum jelly on the inside of that. This is going to be the hardest thing to do, is get the O-ring in. You see how much bigger this O-ring is? What you've got to do is there's a mark right here. Well, actually, there's a groove in your cover. There should be. If not, you got to make one. It can only go one way, so it's not that difficult, really. But there's a little thing there, and I just marked it with red to make it easier. And then this here has to dial right to it. And that mark also has to face the number 1 cylinder. There's another thing that you should look at. So here's my mark. Let me move the distributor. There's the mark, and it's going towards number 1, basically. Pretty close. This has to be at perpendicular to that, 90 degrees. So you're going to be in the center of that, just like that, pointing to number 1. The other thing is that this bolt is going to be kind of close to the middle here. So that way there, when you set it and everything is set, pointing to number 1, and you're on top dead center and all that kind of stuff, you have wiggle room to advance the timing or retard the timing. When you go to drop this in, kick this back a notch before you go down, because when you go down, you're going to be twisting that in to catch that gear. I don't know what you call it. I'll call it a spider gear. How's that? Right? This thing. You're going to catch this thing, and it's going to twist as it goes down because it's spiraled, right? So you want to be off that much. So when you drop it in, you see how she lines up? Or I hope. Again, you know, the big thing is going to be doing that. I think that's going to be the hardest thing, is going to be getting this to line up. Or not line up, just push in. I think lining it up isn't going to be that difficult. Get your bolt and line up your cap. I lubricated everything, so I don't see how in the world you're going to get that O-ring to go in. I mean, if you're lucky and you can push it in. Oh man, ain't no way. I'm not sure. You know, maybe I have to put in that smaller O-ring that they gave us. I don't know. It'd be nice if I could use, you know, put this one in. Yeah. No way I'm going to get that in there, guys. Now you know why they use their O-ring. So let's try it with their O-ring, I guess, you guys. This is just not going to make it. No way. So that's what the O-ring should look like. I just looked up the number, and I looked up images on a couple of different credible sites. The number that I gave you guys is right. So the number is right, but look at this. Can you see that this thing is sitting over the top of another sticker? I think they might have made a mistake. Now look at the O-ring that I got. This number's right. I verified the number for that O-ring, but now look at this O-ring. So see how much fatter this O-ring is? You know, it fits in the slot, but there's no way you're going to get that one to seal. So, you know, I just complained about the people that built the distributor, saying that was wrong. Obviously it's not. This one here is wrong. Look how fat that is in comparison. That's the one I just now put in it. All right, again, I'm going to verify my timing marks. There's that one. Lobes are up. There's my mark right there, facing number 1, the middle of my bolt, right about there. We're on it. So let's see what we can do here. I'm gonna line up. This is pretty close. I don't want to, you know, break the cap. Should have probably just left that off because I'm not worried about dropping anything in there. Even this one's a bitch, but it's going. There it is. So we're seated. That feels okay. I'm in the middle here. My bolt's in the middle of where that shaft is. I'm pointing to number 1. Should be right about there. Yep, I'm about on the bolt. It's got a catch. I mean, I'm right there, I know it. I feel like she's fully seated. You can see that that's all the way down. This is flush. Right in here. There's my mark. But we'll take a closer look. Well, you can see the distributor is all the way down. Got my bolt here. I'm just going to cinch that down. And if you look right here, you can see that little red line maybe just right in front of this here. See if I got another angle for that. See it? See that little red line? And then we're lined right up. So that's a good sign. And you can see I'm in about the middle of this cam, this whole, because that's for, timing. You can bring it back and forth. And I'm just going to leave it where it is because I've got it all set. It just happened to just drop right in right where I wanted it. The hardest part was getting past that O-ring. And then down in here, I can see that the distributor gear has mashed up nicely on that gear. And I'm all lined up there. I'm fully seated. Again, the manual doesn't say anything. All you have to do is just tighten, it says. I'm not going to get it too tight because I'm going to be having to set this later. This is just to make sure that everything is seated. So there you go. Nice and tight right there. No specks, but that's good and tight. It's not moving. That's what's important. And as long as that O-ring doesn't leak, that's the worst thing that can happen, really, is that the O-ring will leak. But that's the one they gave me. I put it back in. I was very careful when I took it off. I used the actual special kind of a screwdriver that's made out of plastic to do that. Rotor is lined up with my mark. I'm sitting on top dead center there. There's my timing mark. And both cam lobes are up. All right, I thought this would be a good look into the mesh right there to see how that works. Now that I've got it all seated and ready to go, I now want to turn the engine 2 times. I'm going to test everything now. This will test the valve train. If you can do 2 complete revolutions without snapping any valves and all those kinds of things, then you did a good job. And then I thought we could just look at that a little bit there. Now, also, though, I in a previous video was installing the power steering pump and the AC bracket. And the AC bracket requires us to turn this distributor from our top dead center here to line up these little cam lobes, right? Well, you'll see. All right, so I've got a 27 millimeter, you guys, and I'm putting it on the front. And I'm gonna turn it clockwise only. Clockwise only. You can see that moving. Nothing's jumping. Right there, I gotta stop, you guys, because I need to put in the bolt. There's a bolt that's over here on this side. Let's take a look at that. So once you get about there on the rotor, then you get your opening right there. So you can get your bolt for the bracket. This here is the bracket for the AC bracket. And then you can see we have that opening in the hub right here, so we can put that bolt in. So let's do that. In my previous video for installing the AC bracket, I stopped at 10 Newton meters on all the other bolts, so I'm going to bring this one up to 10 Newton meters to bring it right with the others. There we go, it's 10. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna torque everything else on this bracket, and I'll meet you right here on my final torque. I'm on my last and final torque. .25. Stuck on there. I got it. There you go. You see why, this cutout right here allows you to get to that bolt. Just marking the bolts, you guys. I want to thank you guys for letting me interrupt this distributor install to take care of that, tightening that last bolt there. And I went ahead and torqued up the whole thing to specs. That reminds me right now, I keep forgetting to let you guys know. I created a playlist called Dressing the Engine. Right there is where you're gonna find things like the AC bracket, for example, and the power steering bracket. Again, I was missing some bolts. Same thing with the alternator and the air pump. Everything that, is kind of dressing it. Even this little thing. It's not gonna have a video on its own, but in the next video, I'm gonna include that into it. Well, let's continue turning the engine. Remember to take out your plugs and all that, so I have everything taken out. I'm just doing it nice and easy. I want to feel everything. Now you notice I'm just about on top, pretty close, right? But see where my distributor is? So we have to make our complete turnover here. Feels good. Okay, now we're getting close. I'm guessing that's it. Let's look at our cams. So I've made a complete revolution and everything. We know that the valve train, everything is in great shape. I feel confident we're on top dead center. Our lobes, cam lobes are where they belong. And so let's continue dressing this engine. Yep, still pointing to number one. So this here is the O-ring. And what I put on here is just some dielectric grease. Now, I also used some dielectric grease on the backside of that rotor before I put it on. I'm still blown away that, the first push down, I have everything lined up. It's kind of amazing. So now I'm just going to take my distributor cap out, but I did something. Look at the tops of your caps here, because there could be some green stuff on there, So what I used is some vinegar and some baking soda and cleaned those terminals up. And then I put some dielectric grease on those. Now you can't really mess this up. It only fits one way. So number one goes to number one. So you know where number one is. It tells you right on the cap. And we're already on number one because we're on top dead center. So I know I can drop this in just like that. Next, take your top, and it also is numbered. So just take number one here and line it up with number one. And again, I cleaned these. I cleaned each one of those 3 points with some vinegar and baking soda, and I put some dielectric grease on it. Next, it's time to put these in. These are just some Allen head screws. I did the same thing with this. I put some dielectric grease around this. I think this high current, causes that to happen. Just to clarify, each one of these have a split washer. Just snug them up. I'm not doing them too tight because I'll be taking this thing apart. So you can see that I'm cheating here with these studs. I just put them on here just to make it easier for me and for the camera, really. So I'm going to put on the gasket. And here's the cover. That little arrow is just for me. That's actually how I took it off. It doesn't have, I think it can go on just about any way, but I marked it when I took it off, and I'm putting it back exactly how I took it off. As far as I know, there are no torque specifications for the front of this plate, but these are M6s, 8.8, so it's 9.9 Newton meters. This is a 5mm hex. All four have spring washers. Now I can remove these. I've set my torque wrench to 9 Newton meters for this. You can always go back and tighten if you have to, right? I've already snugged them all down a little at a time. There's one. 2, 3, 4. There we go. Now I'll mark my bolts as being final torque. I want to point out, it's not necessary to take this cover off to remove or install your distributor. That's off because I completely rebuilt everything and I need to clean everything out. Another point within the manual here, if you continue reading on, there's some notes, and it tells you here that it's not really possible, to adjust your timing simply by, rotating this right here. I mentioned that earlier, and I said, oh yeah, you could retard it and all that. Yeah, and the old Volkswagen's completely mechanical. I kind of consider this to be a hybrid. Basically what you want to do is line everything up like I did there. You're on top dead center, and then your cap and everything on the top, everything would match. So it's pointing to the number 1 cylinder, and you're on your notch and you're at a perfect 90 because your rotor's spinning around in there. That's what it says there, Your rotor's spinning around, but it's going to throw a charge out based on your TDC, the rear one. That's why that one there's super important. You just want to make sure that when it does fire, it's firing on the right pin. That's basically what that's all about, is setting that distributor. So now we all know, right? Just go ahead and set your TDC there, set that up, and everybody is happy. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up, I think I'm completely done on this video. So all I've got to say for now is, thanks again for watching.